Hello everyone. My name is Emily, I'm 39, and this is my truth. You know those families where one sibling is the golden child, the one who can do no wrong, while the other barely exists in the family's eyes. That was my childhood. Up until I was 7, life was normal enough. I was an only child, and while my parents weren't exactly affectionate, they were there. Mom helped me with schoolwork, and Dad occasionally took me fishing at Lake Evergreen. We weren't a perfect family, but things were okay. Then one night changed everything. I remember Aunt Linda coming over at 1 a.m., telling me to pack a bag. Mom was hospitalized unexpectedly. And my sister, Grace, who wasn't due to arrive for another 3 months, was on her way. The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits, hushed conversations, and sterile hospital rooms. Grace was tiny, fragile, and hooked up to tubes and wires. I wasn't allowed near her, touching was forbidden. That's when I first felt the invisible barrier grow between me and my family. When Grace finally came home, our house became a fortress of cleanliness. Mom was obsessed with germs. We had industrial-grade cleaners, hand sanitizers at every corner, and constant wiping down. The smell of bleach haunts me to this day. But the worst was how any sign of illness in me meant immediate exile to Grandma June's or Aunt Linda's sneeze once off you go. A cough, pack your things. At first, Grandma's house was a sweet escape, warm cookies, storybooks. Aunt Linda's had an amazing collection of mysteries I devoured. But children aren't naive forever. Eventually, I realized I wasn't sent away for adventures. I was a threat. My existence somehow dangerous to my beloved sister. I tried everything to get noticed differently. Good grades. Mom barely glanced away from Grace's hospital schedules. Winning science fairs. Dad asked me to store the project away. Grace was allergic to cardboard dust. Was that even real? The breaking point came when I was 11. I had been practicing piano for months, preparing to play bridge over troubled water at the school talent show. But Grace had a slight fever that night. And guess who had an empty audience 2 weeks later? The entire family, even the grandparents, cheered for Grace's 10-minute flute recital. Grace quickly mastered the system. By age 6, her health had improved, but that didn't stop her from exploiting it. Headache, I stayed home. Tired, I did her chores. Stressed about tests, Mom called the school to get deadlines extended. I spent more and more time in my room, surrounded by books on art history and jewelry. My lavender air freshener was my sanctuary. Grace claimed allergies and avoided my room. A twisted part of me felt relief when Grace faked illness. At least I'd be at Grandma's, where someone cared. Grandma June was the one who introduced me to antique jewelry. She had a stunning collection of vintage pieces I was allowed to catalog. That experience was prophetic. The worst wasn't just favoritism, it was how my family rewrote history to excuse it. Grace had a tough start, she needs more attention. Emily is independent, she'll be fine. Emily understands Grace's special needs. I was just a kid who didn't understand why being healthy made me less worthy of love. Looking back, those years shaped me profoundly. The constant message that I was inconvenient and unsafe stuck with me. But it also taught me to be fiercely independent. In high school, people either loved or hated it. For me, it was a ticket out. While Grace was busy creating drama productions, I was building my own escape plan. Nothing pushes you to achieve more than knowing no one's coming to help. Remember how Grandma June's jewelry collection consumed my afternoons? That taught me the importance of organization and attention to detail. I took that approach to school. My desk looked like a professional organizer's dream: color-coded notes, neat study schedules, everything in place. Grace teased me relentlessly, calling me Rain Man. Thanks for the support, sis. But being invisible meant no one tracked my failures or achievements. Freedom to do what I wanted. I joined every club that didn't interfere with my part-time job at Lily's cafe. Big thanks to Lily, the owner, who remembered my birthday when my parents forgot. Debate team check. National Honor Society president check. Editor of the school paper check. Debate gave me my voice. There's nothing like calmly dismantling someone's argument. It also taught me negotiation skills, which later proved invaluable. I won state championships twice. Meanwhile, Grace had soccer games C team, barely played, and my parents never attended both. The real turning point was junior year. I took the SAT and scored a perfect 1,600. Yes, perfect. Fewer than 1% manage that. I stared at my results, convinced it was a mistake. I rushed home, eager to tell my parents. Mom was helping Grace with her English homework. I said, "Mom, I got a perfect SAT score." She replied, "That's nice, honey, but be quiet. Grace is trying to study." Grace chimed in, "Some of us actually have to work hard, Ms. Perfect." My perfect score never made the fridge. Grace's C and in English got prime refrigerator real estate. Applying to college was complicated. I applied to 15 schools alone, wrote my essays, gathered recommendations, and managed FAFSA myself. My guidance counselor, Mr. Parker, was my hero. Acceptance letters came: Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan. Each with scholarships. I hid them all under my bed, knowing what would happen if Grace found out. If Sarah goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone. Or some nonsense like that. When I got my full ride to Michigan, Grace joined JV cheerleading. Guess who got a family feast hint? Not me. I had microwave mac and cheese alone. But the scholarship was my ticket out. Move-in day parents couldn't come Grace's competition again. Aunt Linda drove me, helped set up my dorm, and gave me $500 from Grandma June's secret savings. That night I promised myself, I'd build a life where I couldn't be overlooked. College flew by in a haze of all-nighters, ramen, and freedom. I graduated summa cum laude. Parents still too busy following Grace's college drama to notice. I started an entry-level job at Sterling and Pierce Auction House in Detroit. No real glamour, mostly cataloging estates. Then came the Kingston estate. An elderly widow, no heirs, rumored to have loads of costume jewelry. That's where Grandma June's lessons paid off. I found an Art Deco brooch that felt different. Heavy, complex clasp, no costume piece. I spent lunch breaks researching Maker's marks and even took a gemology online course on my savings. 2 weeks later, I presented my findings to my boss, Mr. Harrison. He barely looked up. "I think this is authentic Cartier, 1925. He was skeptical but listened. That brooch sold for $47,000. After that, he trusted me with more artifacts. I dove into vintage jewelry, taking every course I could afford, spending weekends at estate sales, keeping detailed notes. My apartment was a jewelry scholar's dream, walls covered with printouts of hallmarks and certifications. The auction house thrived. I found overlooked treasures, built collector contacts, and grew commissions. For the first time, I saved money. Family still indifferent. At Sunday dinners, Mom asked, "Emily still works at that antique shop, right?" I said, "Auction house." "Actually, I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece. Grace interrupted, speaking of jewelry, check out this charm bracelet I got at the mall. I stopped caring. I finally found something mine, something I was good at. Then came the Rothschild estate. 2 years in, the auction house catalogued a huge old money family collection. The industry buzzed. I spotted a plain Art Nouveau piece everyone missed. I spent 3 sleepless days investigating. It was from a famed French jeweler's private collection, lost during World War II. Sold for $238,000. Mr. Harrison called me in. I thought promotion. Instead, he said, Emily, you're wasting your talent here. You should start your own authentication business. I took out a loan, emptied savings, rented a tiny office above a Chinese restaurant that smelled like Kung Pao chicken. I worked terrifying hours. But I had contacts, reputation, and expertise. Clients came. 6 months later, I authenticated a massive Victorian brooch collection, discovering rare pieces worth $86,000 in commission. I hired my first employee, Claire, a gemology grad who reminded me of myself, quiet, brilliant, overlooked. She's now head of authentication. My business expanded rapidly. The family still thought I worked at a little antique shop. At a dinner, Grace mocked me, maybe your shop wants this old jewelry I'm donating. I'd just authenticated a 1.2 million piece. Grace's face changed through shock, denial, and nausea. She whispered, this can't be real. Sarah's rich. Mom laughed nervously, don't be ridiculous. I calmly said, Mom, I own one of the biggest authentication firms in the country. Dad choked on his drink. Aunt Linda dropped her fork. Mom's laugh turned angry, her face flushed red, then purple. She stood so fast her chair fell. She screamed, you have millions and let us struggle. I replied, struggle, I send 7,000 monthly. She spat, while sitting on millions your sister's drowning in student debt. No congratulations. No pride. Just outrage.